What's up, Crim Heist? Welcome to another criminology educational video. So for today, we will be discussing fundamentals of criminal investigation and intelligence. So this is the second part of the video discussion with regards to what I uploaded regarding informants, which is the types and classifications. So for today, di-discuss naman natin, or for this video discussion, we will be discussing surveillance and casing. So, before anything else, let me introduce myself. I am Sean Francis San Diego, also known as the Professor. So, for surveillance, let us define what is surveillance. So, pag sinabi nating surveillance, it is a clandestine and continued watching of persons, places, or objects to obtain information concerning with activities and identifies individuals or criminals. So, ibig sabihin, si surveillance daw, ang keyword dyan is clandestine or covert and continued watching of persons or pagsunod sa mga tao or pagtingin sa mga lugar or mga bagay for the main purpose of obtaining information concerning the activities to identify the individual or the identity of the criminal. So other term or other definition is an act of carefully watching someone or something especially in order to prevent or detect a crime and is mostly done by the police or military. So what are the terms used in surveillance? Para mas madali nating maintindihan yung konsepto ng surveillance and yung mechanics niya, let us first be familiarized to the terms used in surveillance. So first is pre-surveillance conference. Ito yung meeting na ginagawa among team members before the actual surveillance. Just to make sure that all of the members are on the same page at alam nila yung kanila, or kumbaga may uniformity sa gagawin nila. As to number 2 is the surveillance plan. So these are the outline or blueprint on how to conduct the surveillance, or ito yung plano kung saan ito yung susundin ng mga team members. And usually, ito yung mga nire-run o nire-review sa pre-surveillance conference or nire-remind sila. So ito ang plano natin for the surveillance operation. So this should be abide strictly or this should be observed strictly. Next is target area. It refers to the area of operation of surveillance activities. So, saang bang lugar gaganapin yung surveillance activities? So, pag sinabi natin sa Quezon City, what particular area in Quezon City is the target area? As to the subject of surveillance, ito yung tao, lugar o property or bagay na subject for surveillance or yung babantayan or susundan nila. As to log, it refers to the chronological record of activities that the subject had or took place in the target area. So, ibig sabihin, itong log, ito yung sinusulatan nung magsa-surveillance or mga team members in order para magkaroon sila ng proper notes kung ano yung mga ginawa ni subject during the surveillance operation. As to the surveillant, ito naman yung tao na gumagawa ng surveillance or who maintains watch. As to convoy, it is an associate of the subject. So, ibig sabihin, kakampiyan ng subject who follows the subject in an attempt to detect kung may sumusunod ba sa kanila. So, usually si convoy, ito yung kakampi ng subject at na ang kanyang purpose is to detect if there is a surveillance. As to contact, any person with whom the subject speaks, to whom he passes articles or from whom he receives articles, ito yung tinatawag natin na contact. Ito yung mga nakasalamuha ni subject during the surveillance operation. As to decoy, it is a person or object used by the subject in an attempt to escape the eyes of a surveillance. So ito usually yung mga panggulo para maligaw si surveillant at hindi na siya masundan. Next is made. When we say made, the surveillance is being recognized as the surveillant by the subject or convoy. So this means na burn out na or na-detect na or nakita na or the subject is aware na sinusundan sila or may sumusunod sa kanilang mga authorities. As to loss, this is the time when the surveillant does not know the whereabouts of his subject. So, ibig sabihin, naligaw niya na or naligaw na ni subject si surveillant. So, ibig sabihin, si decoy ay naging makatagumpay sa pagligaw kay surveillant. And the subject is lost when the subject eluded him. Now let's go to the types of surveillance. So this is very important because this is a board exam topic questions. So first is fixed surveillance or tinatawag din natin to as stakeout. So it is conducted when a person, object, or activity being watched is not expected to move from one area. So ibig sabihin, nasa isang target area lang si subject. And therefore, nasa fixed point lang sila, wherein the surveillant may however from one vantage position point to another in the immediate area. So ibig sabihin, pwede namang gumalaw-galaw si subject, we can still consider it as a fixed surveillance, but at least, kumbaga sa immediate area lang ng kanyang target area. The second is yung moving surveillance. Kung may fixed surveillance tayo, yung tinatawag natin na stakeout, ito naman si moving surveillance, also known as tailing or shadowing. So, a moving surveillance is conducted when a person, object, or activity being watched move from one place to another. So, the surveillant may, however, move from one vantage point to another in the immediate area. So, other term for moving surveillance is tailing or shadowing. Ito naman yung pagsunod sa subject na gumagalaw. So, usually, ito yung mga operations that is for conveyance or nasa travel or tumatravel or nagtatransport or conveying si subject. So, under moving surveillance is the open tail surveillance. So, please pakitandaan ito. For open tail surveillance, this is also known as rough surveillance. So, the subject is most likely aware of the surveillance. So, ibig sabihin, aware si subject or ito tinatawag natin na maid. So, usually, nakakakutob-kutob na si subject na may sumusunod sa kanya. As to close-tail surveillance, this is the subject is kept under constant surveillance, also known as the tight surveillance. So, dito sa close-tail surveillance, walang pakialam si surveillant kung siya ay mahuli or magkaroon ng maid or maging aware si subject na siya ay sinusundan. The very aim of this close-tail surveillance is not to lose the subject. So, dapat hanggat maaari magkadikit na magkadikit sila or magkalapit na magkalapit. As to loose-tail surveillance, it refers to the tailing commonly employed if the surveillant wants to remain undetected. So, si close-tail surveillance, wala siyang pakialam kung siya ay mahuhuli. It's just that kailangan lang hindi mawala si subject sa kanyang mga mata. As for loose-tail surveillance, it refers to the tailing commonly employed if the surveillant wants to remain undetected. Now let's go to aerial surveillance. So this type of surveillance is done using helicopters or other aerial devices. So aerial, kumbaga watching over sa ere. This is commonly employed in the areas that is not accessible to foot or vehicle surveillance. So usually ito yung gumagamit ng mga drone. So ibig sabihin, kinokontrol na lang siya ng mga authorities or police officers and then yung mismong drone na yung pumupunta dun sa target area to watch over. As to technical surveillance, this surveillance involves or uses communications and electronic eavesdropping devices such as wiretaps, tracking devices, beepers, and electronic hardwares, gadget system, and equipment in information gathering. So usually gumagamit siya ng mga electronical gadgets in order to obtain information. Next is audio electronic surveillance under the technical surveillance. Dito, ito yung employment of bugging or wiretapping devices para makapag-intrude siya doon sa communication ng subject. As to bugging, it is the eavesdropping any communication or conversation with the aid of any bug devices. Bug is a form of electronic device placed in an establishment to record, receive, or transmit conversation. So usually, ito yung dinidikit sa mga kwarto, sa ilalim ng lamesa in order to have an access kung sino yung mga kinakausap ni subject. As to wiretapping naman, ito yung tinatap or ini-intercept yung communication sa telepono or cellphone in order to listen or record the conversation. It is the act of listening secretly to any conversation who are within the same premise as the person who intends to listen to the conversation. So, ito yung tinatawag natin na eavesdropping. Now, let's go to casing. So, dito kay casing, It is the process of inspecting places to determine its suitability for operational use. In the military, it is known as reconnaissance. Sometimes it is called the surveillance of places or buildings. Casing should be done either. So si casing, ito naman yung pag-i-inspect ng lugar to determine if suitable yung lugar na yon for operational purposes. So what are the types of casing? So first is exterior casing. So from the word itself pa lang, ang i-observe naman niya is whole or immediate areas or the external premises of the building or installation, the possible exits and entrances, the types of vicinity that may possibly be help to any intelligence or counterintelligence operation. As to interior casing, ang ini-inspect naman niya dito is different part of the building or structure, which includes but not limited to the different rooms within the building. Next is personal or the methods of casing. So the first is personal reconnaissance. For personal reconnaissance, it is a type of casing or a method of casing in which it is the most effective means and will produce the most information since you know just what you are looking for. So sa personal reconnaissance, ikaw mismo yung pupunta doon sa target area or doon sa lugar to assess the suitability of the said area. As to map reconnaissance naman, a map reconnaissance alone may not be as sufficient, but it can produce a certain amount of usable information. So, ibig sabihin, ina-assess mo lang yung lugar through a map. So, from a map, it is possible to get a good survey of roads and street networks. Unlike a personal reconnaissance, you are personally napupunta ka doon. You are going to personally visit the area for casing. Next is research. So such information can be acquired through research. And research normally entails a study of unclassified sources such as local newspapers, periodicals, public bulletins, telephone and city directories, radio and television broadcasts, and other available references in order to assess the area. Next is prior information. So your unit will have on-file reports from other activities within your unit and also from other intelligence unit that may provide you with information. In addition, town studies, geodetic surveys, and can provide you with valuable information. So kumbaga dito si prior information, usually ito yung tinatawag natin na information at hand. So ibig sabihin, magkakalkal ka lang ng mga records mo at aalamin mo doon or makakakita ka doon ng information regarding that area that may help you in your casing. Next is hearsay. Ito yung mga sabi-sabi. So this type of information is usually gained by the person operating in the area of performing the casing job. So casing should always be done with your ears open when visiting such places as restaurants, bars, places of amusement, and while riding on a public transport facility. Some hearsay information may be gained by discreet questioning of the people in the area. Now, let's go to the cover and undercover operations. So, una, ano ba yung cover or tinatawag natin na covert information? It is the means by which an individual, group, or organization conceals or tinatago niya yung true nature of its activities and or its existence from the observer. It is also a device or stratagem by which the intelligence operatives conceals their identity, their relationship with the intelligence collection agencies, and it is used so that the intelligence operatives may operate with minimal interference from the outside elements, criminals, subversives, and otherwise. By outside elements, it is meant those not having the need to know or hindi naman talaga dapat malaman nila. An undercover is a person with cover. So, ibig sabihin, si cover operation, ito yung tago na paggawa ng mga operations in order to gain information. What are the functions of cover? So first is offensive. It gives access to the target and facilitates the achievement of clandestine objectives. As to defensive, of course, yung mga information na makukuha niya can be utilized to prevent detection on any clandestine activities of the undercover agents or intelligence collection agencies against doon sa kanyang intelligence unit. What are the essential uses of cover? Of course, you have to maintain secrecy of operations against enemy intelligence. Kasi nga, cover operations, you are hiding clandestine method of operation. Second is, maintain secrecy of operation against friendly agencies not having the need to know. So, hindi ibig sabihin friendly or kaibigan o kakampi mong agency, hindi rin dapat nila malaman. So, usually, ang dapat lang nakakaalam nito is the principle of need to know. Kung sino lang yung mga dapat or essential na makaalam. Pursues successful accomplishment of the mission. Now, let's go to the types of cover. So, first is natural cover. Ito yung paggamit ng totoo at actual personal background to fit the purpose of undercover operation. So, usually, you are assuming someone's identity. As to artificial cover, you are using a biographical data adapted for a fictitious purposes. So, ibig sabihin, you are kumbaga, playing an identity of a person na hindi naman talaga tao or does not exist. Unlike a natural cover, you are assuming the identity of a real person. Next is cover within a cover. It is a use of secondary cover in case of compromise, which necessitates the admission of a lesser crime. And multiple cover, it is the adoption of any cover identity as wished by the undercover agent, of course, to maiwasan din yung, or rather, maprotektahan din yung sarili niya in case na siya ay mahuli or ma-made or ma-burn out yung kanyang operation. Next is numerous hazards to cover. Of course, the static or dormant opposition. So, a good example is cigarette vendors, tricycle drivers, road maintenance, utilities, and the like. So, usually, ito yung mga ginagamit or ini-utilize din ng mga intelligence units in order to gain information. Next is in hostile active opposition. So, usually, ito yung mga friendly forces who do not have the need to know. Hostile activity oppositions refers to the enemy intelligence activities or forces. Now, let's go to the criteria for cover. So, first is it should be simple. So, kailangan yung cover operation mo should be simple. One that is easy to remember for the operator. It is adequate. One that provides enough security for status and actions. So, kailangan simple ngunit sapat. It is economical. Expenditures are commensurate to the desired information. So, kailangan nararapat lang yung gastos doon sa importansya or gravity of the importance of the information. Now, let's go to organizational cover. For organizational cover, an account consisting of biographical data which when adopted by an individual will assume the personality he wants to adopt. So, anong objectives dito? Of course, to camouflage and protect the operational personnel and their activities, to protect their vital installation in which clandestine activities are based, and what are the guidelines to organizational cover? So, organizational cover must appear to produce something. So, kailangan meron niyang kapupuntahan. It should devise that not all personnel will work together at the same time. So, kailangan meron niyang delineation of responsibility at may sistema silang sinusunod kasi the more na yung magkakakilalang personnel is magkakatrabaho, it may be a hazard also kasi nga malay mo biglang mag-usap regarding their original lives and that can compromise the operation. Cover should be devoted to mission. And start with a small organizational cover and provide room for expansion as it continues to exist. So, ibig sabihin, magbuo ka muna ng maliit na organizational cover and if it seems to be effective, tsaka ka expand for a bigger organizational cover. Now, let's go to the documentation of the cover. So, it is very necessary to support the cover story. So, especially in assuming one's identity, it should be supported by documents, which should be in the personal possession of the undercover investigator, and those which should be on file in official and private offices in connection with some base of the assumed background. Documentation of the cover, of course, the alias, which is the fictitious name of a person, a pseudonym. Backstop refers to a falsified documents and materials prepared by the undercover to make his cover story credible, such as diploma, TOR, birth certificate, marriage certificate, and all of those documents that may support the cover. Now let's go to the undercover operation. It is a form of investigative technique whereby undercover agent assume another identity or conceals his official identity in order to infiltrate the ranks of criminal syndicates. For undercover agent, it may be a police or law enforcement agencies and intelligence collection units are routinely involved in undertaking undercover operations. When we say safe house, this refers to a safe place where the investigator or his informants meet for briefing and debriefing purposes. So usually ditong safe house, dito sila magtatagpo ng investigator at ng informant. It refers to a person who courier, it refers to a person who carries information to another person. As to drop, it refers to a secure place where the agents or informants give their message to the other agents, which could either be a dead drop, a live drop. So, ano ang dead drop? So, for dead drop, the agent merely leaves the message. As to live drop, the courier hands over the message directly to the agent. So, kay dead drop, basta iiwanan niya na lang yung message or yung dokumento. As to live drop naman, kailangan magkikita talaga sila in a safe house. Now, let's go to reminders when conducting undercover operations. First is to act naturally as possible. Do not overplay your part. Kailangan kasi mag-blend ka talaga sa tao or doon sa crowd. Do not indulge in any activity which is not in conformity with the assumed identity. This means that if you play the part of a fisherman, and have the knowledge, attitude, and skills of a fisherman. Kasi nga naman, kung ikaw ay fisherman, yung identity ina-assume mo, pero ang dinidiga or kinukwento mo dun sa community mo is regarding sa farming. So, ano na agad, di ba? Contradicting na dun sa identity or sa cover story mo. Now let's go to the reminders when conducting. So in continue, do not make note unless they are to be mailed or passed immediately. Use notes or ciphers if possible. Do not use liquor or any intoxicant except if necessary and limit the amount to avoid being drunk. Kasi nga naman, pag ikaw ay nalasing, maaaring ikaw ay magkwento. Limit your association with women. Now, let's go to the types of undercover assignments. Nandyan si dwelling assignments, kung saan one where the undercover agents establish residency in or near the dwelling which houses the suspect. So, ibig sabihin, si dwelling assignment, ikaw magko-cover, kumbaga ang iyong operation is magiging kapitbahay ka nung subject or nung suspect. As to work assignment, from the word itself, ang i-undercover mo naman is you get an employment to the same company or to the same employment agency as to the suspect or dun sa subject mo para masundan mo siya at his place of work. As to social assignment, it requires the undercover agent to frequent places of entertainment and amusement known to be habitually visited by the target personalities and their associates. So usually dito kay social assignments, ito yung mga parties. Kung mahilig siya mag-firing, of course, you will do firing. So para lang makasabay ka dun sa subject or sa suspect. An undercover naman for multiple assignments is given a task of covering two or more above specific assignments simultaneously. So for example, dwelling assignment and social assignment. So pag pinagsama mo yan, that is a multiple assignments. Next is personal contact assignment or rope job. So the undercover agent is required to develop friendship and trust with the target personality for the purpose of obtaining information or evidence. So dito kay personal contact assignment, ito yung makikipagkaibigan ka talaga or makikipag-close ka talaga doon sa subject. So may dalawa yan, direct and indirect. So for direct, this is the employment and utilization of special agents in a particular undercover operation. As to indirect, this is the employment and utilization of controlled informants relative with the collection of useful information. So pag direct, yung agent mismo yung magpe-penetrate or yung magko-conduct ng undercover operation. Pag indirect naman, mag-utilize lang siya ng mga controlled informants. Now let's go to cover story. Ito yung biographical account, true or fictional, or a combination of truth or fiction, which portrays the undercover investigator's past history and current status. So what are the types of cover story? Nandiyan si natural cover story, in which story using actual background data with minor adjustments to feel and or fit the situation. So usually dito kay natural cover story, gumagamit talaga siya ng actual background. As to artificial cover story, ito yung mag-iimbento ka lang ng biographical data. And of course, letter C, combination of true and personal data. True and false personal data, rather. Now let's go to cover support. Agents in target area with a primary mission of supporting their cover story. So usually dito kay cover support, ito yung mga agents din or controlled informants na magiging katulong ni special agent or ni undercover operator in um, establishing his identity and credibility to the community or to the crowd. So thank you very much, and I do hope that you learned a lot regarding surveillance, casing, and undercover operations. If you love this video, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the professor, and hit the notification bell for you to be updated for my next video upload. So thank you very much and have a great day.